again from our side, from the Change Pioneer side, to the OD Quarterly, and our OD Quarterly is dedicated with Change Management Diagnostics. And for this, we found Marcella Linn, and Marcella, she developed a tool which is called Change Eye, and I saw it already. I'm really impressed, and I think there's a lot of potential for this tool, and therefore we will also we want to show this to other people to get it more known, and you will get to know a lot more about this a little later. And we have also Bernd Zimmermann from our side, who is basically he has been doing all the work and preparing this and setting this up. I'm just here for the introductory words here. So thanks a lot for this organization, and it's going to be brilliant. So, but it won't work without a little bit of information about Change Pioneers as well. And there you might have an idea what we are, where we are going for, what we are looking for. And if we go along the cynic model, the golden circle, our North Star with respect to why is basically we are passionate to cultivate the inner glow in people, teams, and organizations there. And there can be a lot being said about this, but it's really like if you are in kind of a functioning mode, you're doing your job, it's kind of a lot of drag as well. And you all know the Gallup study, where 70% of the employees are not really identified with their work. This is where no glow is. There is no glow for the work that they are doing. And this is something that we want to raise again, that people going to their job are passionate about it, see a purpose in this. And this is basically what we are looking for at Change Pioneers. And I don't know why this works backwards. Sorry for this. Let's see. I do it this way. Okay, and what are we do? We basically do organization development on all kinds of levels and in all topics, going from implementation of new IT systems, how this can be done, to cultural change, to self-organized learning, team building activities. So there's a lot of action to be done in this field, and since we are looking for kind of a holistic approach, the field is even huger. You can think of holistic organizational development starting at looking at the physical well-being of employees, going up to spiritual retreats for a leadership circle, things like that. And in this field we are active, and we want to really ignite and manifest a sustainable tomorrow. So there is also this kind of responsibility that we feel for our planet, and our goal is really kind of to have a contribution such that work, the economy, everything is kind of evolving to a place where we have all a sustainable future. So this is in a nutshell what we do. So we want to ignite and manifest this sustainable tomorrow. And what we are doing, you see it here, it's organizational development, it's org design, it's change management, it's virtual collaboration. We have an academy with different kinds of seminars, it's team development, all those kinds of things, and really to be kind of the number one in organizational development. So if you at one point think about, oh, we need perhaps something, there's a transition going on, that instantaneously Change Pioneers pops up to your mind. So this would be our North Star in a nutshell. And going back here to our structure, we are basically organized as an ecosystem. Ecosystem means that all of our peer producers, how we call it, are self-employed and independent. So we have a core team of people who work under their own identity as consultants, but they see that the Change Pioneers really has a a purpose that they share or a vision that they share, and that there is a coherence in values and in attitude towards the work that we are doing. Also with respect what I said about sustainability and a human-centered approach to what we are doing. So this is the ecosystem, but the ecosystem has also on the left-hand side kind of partners where we use tools with respect to validated organizational development. So one aspect would be like what you see down below is Change Eye, but we have also Reconfig. This is about org design. We have Org Mapper. We have partners like an institute that is doing research on organizational development. So this is kind of a fruitful interaction to produce new results that might be relevant to the sector of organizational development. And on the right-hand side, we also have our consumers, or you might call it clients, but I'll tell you difference later. You see the logos in there. And our idea is really not to have kind of our ecosystem in a sense closed up and acting as an entity, providing services to the outside world, but we see each other on eye level with our consumers and our partners. So this is where the boundaries get blurred, and more of the purpose and vision behind that is going to spread out towards these other participants in the ecosystem. And therefore we also don't call it a network, which is for us mostly transaction based, but it's really about learning and growing together, founding a community of like-minded people, and bring a change in the world that makes a difference in the end, a difference for our world as well. Yes, so going back, I think I have left this, and these are basically our main pillars, our main offers that we have here. So it's the OD consulting and facilitation, where we look at really useful and validated tools which are proven successful, which are also scalable, like our social learning program, Leading Awesome. And we have digital solutions for virtual collaboration, for example, but also the change I would put in there. And on the other hand, we look on enablement and leadership. So we have the in-house trainings with different peer consumers like Strateg, Unitech, Siemens. We have also this CP Academy, where mainly we go for enablement, and we go for personal growth as well there. So I think this is in a nutshell what we are doing at Change Pioneers with our ecosystem. But now I want to turn the hand over to Bernd, who is telling you something about what's going on and how we came up to change management and the context of this OD talk today. I wish you a pleasant talk. Bernd, I can't hear you at the moment, sorry.
It's because I have not unmuted the most asked sentence, right? I was saying, welcome from my side, and we will have a threefolded, or spend the time in a threefolded way. I will talk a little bit about change architecture. Then the main part will be Marcella demonstrating on the change analytics and especially the change eye. And then we are planning a Q&A session here. If you have questions in between, maybe you can put them in the chat so that we already can kind of document them. And then in the Q&A session, we will have time to discuss that. So I'm Bernd Zimmermann. I'm the former global head of organizational development for Siemens Healthineers, and I was with Siemens Leadership Excellence, also a couple of years doing leadership development and OD. And hello to all the Siemens colleagues in the call, whether we have ever met or not. Great pleasure to share a little bit about my experience in change management, especially change architecture, and how is this connected to change analytics. before we start digging into change architecture, I think it is important to see for what are you designing your change. And we all know this graphic or this differentiation, which is here on the slide about the transactional change on the left-hand side and the transformative part of change. And I think the main difference how to tackle this is what is stated in the last line, that transactional change is maybe more about doing change to people, while the transformative change is about doing change with people. And it's a very blurry field. So the advice is to, if you're not sure or a little bit unsecure whether you have a transactional change, always go first for the transformative change. And also on the other hand, even you start out maybe transactional, so with getting buy-in, doing some communication, dealing with some resistance, some stakeholder mapping, resistance mapping, and so on. You might need to change at a certain time to transformative change, so to a more dialogic and emergent approach. And what would that need, or what are maybe crucial elements? We could see that on the next slide. Some main elements I found helpful in how do you make your change interventions discussable with top management, and we saw that you can measure it, then you can convince the CEO, but also how can you make this somehow discussable with top management, are these 4 elements. So the first, and these we will go this through a couple of slides which will follow for each of these elements. So first of all, how do you define the change goals? And this in itself is, from my experience, already a huge intervention, and it's often a very dialogic process, even if it seems very clear at the beginning, hey, change management team, please say we want this, or we are just implementing a new IT system that is not so hard, right? It is a dialogue with your main stakeholders, with the top management about what are the change goals really, what is the goal behind the goal, and we will dive a little bit into this in a second. Then how can you align on principles to measure the individual intervention, but also your full change architecture against? So in what light do you want to design your change? And then you need certainly an intervention design itself, and this is there are all those interventions which we might know of, and all these different formats like open spaces or like communication activities, viral change, and so on. So we will also look a little bit on that later. And then you certainly, even if you're just a one-man or one-woman show, you need to plan for some change support facilities and analytics. And that's also the demonstration on this picture on the left. I see change in this transformative way or in this emergent way. It looks so clear here, 1 to 4 steps, but this is a disclaimer. It is never that clear. Change is messy, and change is kind of repetitiveness. So you need to go back a couple of times maybe to define and scope really the change goals while you're already doing interventions and so on. So it's really a back and forth. And the main piece for me and my main answer about the beliefs about change analytics, or here in this case also change design, is that you have a reason or that you have material to spark a discussion or a dialogue, to go into dialogue with the people around you about what is the reality and what do we want to achieve here, what do we want to leave behind, and what do we don't want to leave behind. So with that said, let's dive into the defining the change goals. So on the next slide, I brought a little example here, and you see how we are doing this by trying to really pin down through different workshops, interviews, also maybe some analytics, so looking into engagement surveys, etc. What could be or are the change goals? And again, it's really a hard process. It's a thinking process. It is getting in between the in-between. What does the CEO mean when he says, hey, let's just introduce SAP to our organization? And there are also some more frameworks that can help. how you can develop these goals. But here in this customer example, it was about how can we put the right culture in place that supports making our mission become possible in the given time frame and context. How can we integrate diverse backgrounds and people into a coherent shared understanding of this is what we need and this is our specific way of doing things. And these quotes came from some of the workshops we did there. How can we master the maturity of our organization so that all feelings, responsibilities, accountability that everybody was sharing 2 years ago. So that was a company who quickly grew from 150 people to now 750 people. And in the former times, everybody knew each other and was easy and accountability was clear kind of. And now there's so huge and so many different organizational backgrounds. So how can we establish this in a distributed and maybe more formal way? And how can we support the efficient ramp up of an effective platform which enables the true value creation chain? So quite clear goals. If you read them, they don't sound like rocket science. Even it still needs some maybe going in between the in between. But then also using analytics, and if you just click once, Tobias, you see that the reality maybe is totally different or is even against these change goals. And I think this is so also very interesting, not only to evaluate the change goals, but against what reality are we leaning these change goals. And in this place, it was that people, for example, were confused what happened to our old values and cultures and processes. How can we bring these multiple diverse backgrounds really together and form a working culture? There were also these first islands of it is not safe to speak up anymore, or I have my own agenda as a manager and so on. So you see just some examples of what you can analyze or what you can get out of this through some interviews and workshops, and what you could mirror back to your stakeholders, however you are involved in this change initiative. So quick view on change goals. If we go to the next page, it is okay. How can we maybe pin down some design principles to measure each intervention against, but also to get the full architecture clear, and maybe being in the need to adapt the architecture. And just to pick a few, it could be really important to say, okay, how can we, if we are planning an intervention, a certain all hands meeting or some communication or whatever, how can I, for example, put this to the principle, no change in the classroom. So no artificial talking about it, but how can we tune every intervention to that really something is happening in the room, and it's not just talking about stuff in the classroom. Or how can we challenge each other while staying humble to each other? So I really encourage everybody, and it's some work, and it's not always liked at least by stakeholders, but later it gives you, if you are responsible for designing the interventions, it gives you a much better feeling for what are we really designing, or in what light are we designing our interventions. And it's not just I could do now any kind of intervention. On the next slide, we see a rough first change architecture, and how I always do it is the two lines on the bottom is I differentiate between what can I, from an interventional standpoint, do to establish change on the system, as I call it. So processes, structures, everything that is written, documented, that I can see and touch. So this is kind of change on the system, and what kind of change in the system. So behavior, talking with each other, conversations, dialogues, how can we change this there? And then on the column side, what I normally do is first to really see what has already happened in the past, or already in the first weeks or months of whenever you get called in. Normally you get called in when there is already something happening. It's seldom that it's really on a blank page, and you just kind of try to list these things in order to get an overview of, okay, what have they already done, what has already happened, how are the different stakeholder groups maybe already informed, and so on. And then you turn to the right hand side, and you later can certainly make this larger and put it on a timetable and so on. But collecting the first ideas, okay, what needs to be done in terms of the goals and the design principles in terms of change on the system. So in this case, how can we create more visible artifacts of change, e.g. ticking clock at the entrance, or no more 100% free food for the employees if you want to create, for example, a sense of urgency, or how can we integrate the new culture in our bonus processes and so on, performance processes, and for example, change in the system. And here you already see different stakeholder groups, which you certainly can and should maybe tackle much more in detail. But what are the different things or ideas of interventions that you could have for these different stakeholder groups, and how do you link these stakeholder groups then at certain points in time together? How can they make collective sense of the change, and how can they exchange maybe whether they reached a certain change goal or not? And all this is supported by the change support and analytics lever, which you see, which has different, or where you also can take different actions. If you have HR or HRBP community to work and scale with, this is really helpful. But here also all the communication events and measures, but also all the knowledge management and knowledge hubs ideas could fall in. And last but not least, certainly, how can you analyze and monitor how the change process is going? And for that, we will see in 2 minutes then Marcella and the change eye, and just to have a look on the last slide. So how could all this look a little bit on a sketched time frame, and again a little bit the steps then of how to deliver the change as a last piece of the change architecture. You probably want and need to align on the rough framework or thought through framework of the change architecture, and need to finish some change management design there. Maybe you want to include a sounding board, establish certain no feel do targets, so more detailing out to atomic behavior the change goals, and certainly align with other stakeholders. And then you could, for example, do an upfront analytics of how is the change perceived, maybe after the first communication, by, for example, using the change eye. And then you design continuously your interventions. You build the plane while you are flying, most likely, and deliver and adjust. So this is also then where it kind of gets a continuous process, and you kind of go back and forth and see what is needed, especially what is coming out of further analytics, which you didn't find here, but Marcella can tell us that with certain customers, they are doing 2 or even 3 times of the change eye to see whether the change goals are fully reached yet or not. Yeah, and with that, please, either note any questions on the chat or remarks. With that, I hand over to Marcella, and looking forward how we can now analyze the change.
Thank you very much, Bernd, for your insights concerning change architecture. Always difficult and always important. And also, Tobias, thank you for your introduction and that I can be here. Yes.
You're welcome.
I have a Mac, so I need a few seconds to get it right, that you can see my desktop, and I go into the presentation mode. Bernd, is that okay?
Great, works.
Does it work? Okay, perfect. So, hello everybody. Thank you very much for your time. I'm actually very excited, especially to see you coming from so different places all over the world, and also from really various industries. So for me, this shows that change is a global concern. Our world needs change. And we believe that our companies and organizations have a key role in driving this change. And for that, they have to change themselves. Not all, but many. And I think that's the job of most of you. You help organizations change. When I say we, who is we? That's we. That's a small group of people that joined together about 2 years ago, I think. All OD specialists like you with very different backgrounds, but united in a mission to help organizations to see how well they are doing in their change projects. Yes, and this was when the Change I idea was born. The young lady with the long brown hair here on the picture, this is Elena. You heard her before. She is my daughter. She studies economics at the University of Basel, like me, many, many years ago. And she works for the Change I. She helps me with a lot of work, and she's a great sparring partner for the whole team. Yes, this is the team, and this is a tool. The Change I is a survey tool, and it's a very simple survey tool. We, as a team, we identified 6 so-called success factors. I show them to you later. And 30 questions. So per success factor, we really tried to find the 5 crucial questions. And with this survey tool, employees and managers are given the opportunity to express their views on the change and to get involved. And on the other hand, the responsible management gets a detailed view of how well the change is being supported by the employees, and they can take appropriate measures. So this really in a nutshell. Then we have these 6 success factors. The first and probably most important is the purpose, what Bernd mentioned before with the change goal. And the survey asks if people see the need of the change, for example, if they understand the goal, and also if they see the way how the organization will reach the goal. On the change leadership, we ask to what extent the employees and managers affected by the change are willing to follow the responsible management. So we ask what people think. Does the responsible management give enough attention to the change? Does it act with visionary power? Or, for example, does it treat people in a fair way? The third success factor, some people are sometimes a little bit irritated about that, but we found out that project management is also something that people look at. For example, are sufficient resources being made available for the project? I think we all know projects where this is not the case. And for example, is the speed right of the whole process. Number 4, also very important, the individual confidence. Here we ask, does the individual person think that the change holds opportunities for him or her? And also very important, does he or she feel supported by the superior? Learning teams. I think you all know learning teams from the 5th discipline, where I find it always very interesting to read Peterson G. 5th discipline. And here we ask, do teams, for example, address regularly their current situation in the change? And also, does the organization invest in team development? Because it does not fall from heaven. You have to do something for it. And change culture asks questions like, do the organization units work well together? Because it is it is known that when the organizational units work together well, an organization is better in doing the change. And also things like, is the organization able to deal with the uncertainty? So these are the 6 success factors we have. And in the preparation, Bernd asked me, but what are the change situations where you use the change I? And I put some together, and you see really the classical 3. This is restructuring, then the strategy, implementing of a new strategy, and also cultural development. And you all know that often this comes together. But also new planning and controlling systems, new IT systems, very demanding also merger situations or post-merger integration. And then new work, agile ways of working, which we see more and more now in the last few years, or more hands-on things like moving in multi-space offices. So this just a few examples of where the change I can be used, typical situations. Yes, sometimes people ask, why is the name of the tool Change I? And there are 2 reasons. One reason is that through the Change I, you can see how well your change is going. And the other reason you see here, we looked for a very simple graphical visualization and found this graphic, and it looks like an eye. So here in the inner circle, you have the management. In the outer circle, you have the employees, but you can adapt it. We just made a survey here in Basel, and they only asked the management, and so they differentiated in higher and middle management, the 2 circles. And then it's very easy. I think you see it. It's a traffic light system that starts at 12 o'clock and goes around the clock from dark green to dark red. So now I have talked a lot, and I think that probably you would like to try this out a little bit. Therefore, I would like to invite you to get a first impression of the survey. And for this, we have created a demo version of the Change I with a sample of 2 out of the 5 questions per success factor. And when you have done this, as a result, you get your personal Change I with your answers displayed in the outer circle. And in the inner circle, we have put some random answers, because otherwise the inner circle would have been empty, and this is not so fancy. So you can now take your mobile phone and just take a picture of the QR code here. And probably, Bernd, would you...
I put the link also here in the chat.
Put already the link into the chat. So you have 2 ways to access it, either via the QR code or via the link in the chat. And then you can choose as language German, Deutsch, or English. Yes, so please go ahead.
What would you say, Marcella? 5 minutes?
I think it takes 3 to 4 minutes, not longer.
Okay.
Real quick, Marcella. So we think of any change, or
that's a good point. Yes, please take one change, either a change that is right now going on, or a change you experienced in the past. So remember this change, and with this in mind, take the survey. Very important. Thank you so much.
Okay. Yeah.
Sarah, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
So my results, I have kind of a red eye, so I need to rework my change architecture, I think.
Okay. So try again.
A bit green for me, Marcella. So dark green.
Okay. Ooh. So it's a well-managed change with the perfect architecture.
Not show you, but yeah, the green eye.
Found probably that people make a thumbs up when they are finished.
Yeah, does anybody needs 1 more minute? Speak up or wave in the camera. I'm done. All right. I think we can continue, Marcella.
Okay, perfect. This demo is will be open until midnight. So when afterwards you would like to test it again, probably with another change in mind, then just feel free. We are happy. Okay, so I hope you experienced this, that it's user-friendly, and it works also on stationary or mobile phones. And I hope also that you saw it is really easy handling. In the full version, you have these 30 questions, and the customer can also choose whether he would like to have the possibility for open text at the end of the survey. What I would like to point out here on this slide is that we have really a very experienced and very professional company in the background. This is onlineumfragen.com in Lucerne, and they are the freaks in survey questions and in the technology you need for this. And we can also say we provide highest data security, and the data centers, they are two, of course, but one they point out is in Zurich, Switzerland. Yes. So the results, this is normally, of course, not only this one change eye that you saw in the demo version, but we provide two reports. What is very important in our opinion is that it is simple and easy to read. Probably many of you know employee surveys. I know there are different employee surveys. Some are more concise and more easy to read, but I saw also these surveys where you have 100 pages and where it is really, really difficult and time-consuming to find out what to do. And so what we did, we created a so-called focus report. And this focus report shows only where are the strengths in the change process. So where are you doing well, and where are the fields of action? And this all on a few pages. And with the focus report, you know immediately where to act and where to start. And the reason is in a change process, it has to go fast. You know, when you make a normal employee survey, you normally have time, and it takes about a half a year, sometimes longer, until your whole organization has reviewed the results and found measures based on these results. But if you would like to see more details, we have the big picture report. This report provides you with all the data, and you can navigate through it with heat maps. I show you immediately a little bit more. So here you see some pages of the focus report. On the slide in the middle, you have an overview of the 6 success factors, and it is indicated how much Bernd, Handlungsbedarf is...
How much need for action?
Need for action.
Action, thank you. How much need for action is in the different success factors. For example, here you see in the first, this is Sinn in German, this is purpose. You have 4 of them. And then when you look at the slide on the lower right, you see that people say they don't see that the need is given for this change, that the goal is not clear, that what they know from the goal, they think it makes no sense. And also they don't see the way how to reach the goal. So when you see such a picture, you already, you know very quickly, you have to find interventions to go into dialogue with the people like Bernd say, and to explain and the sense, the purpose of the change. The big picture report, here you see in the middle such a heat map. You have on the left, you have the 6 success factors, and on the top you have different organizational units. And here you can see that the different organizational units see also the change in a different way. So you have those who are quite green and others who are more yellow and orange. And then this big picture report provides you also with all the single questions. So you can deep dive. Sometimes as a consultant, you have also you have a hypothesis where there could be a difficulty. And then with the help of the big picture report, you can really deep dive and go to the single question. Yes, what could be your benefits as a either internal OD specialist or external consultant? Change is always complex, and often it leads to insecurity with the responsible management. And by providing this easy way to monitor change, the change gives you the possibility to give security to the management. But sometimes this is what somebody mentioned it in the chat. I think it was Anne Cecilia. You wrote, if you can measure it, you can convince the CEO. So this is, you said it very concise, not so complicated like I did. But on the other hand, sometimes the responsible management does not see the need for professional change support. They think or hope somehow everything will go well. I think you all know also this situation. And in this case, the change shows that there is a need for action and that there's also need for professional change support. Yes, you can involve employees, as we think, in a motivating and committing way while saving time and costs. For example, compared to conducting and analyzing lots and lots of interviews. And then I think this is a very important one, because only when you know what is going well, what is not going well, of course, you can customize also your change architecture and also design very targeted interventions. Yes, with the change you give managers data and a language to talk about the change, and also enlarging change management competence is my experience. It's also something that can help develop an organizational culture of handling change professionally. And last but not least, especially when you're in external consulting, it helps you to stand out in the change consulting market. So one more slide I have here. Yes. Often we are asked, okay, how long does this whole thing go? How much time do we have to foresee? Because often people refer to their experience with normal employee surveys. And what you see here from, we call it project launch. So when you plan with your customer how the process of this survey, of conducting the survey will go, based until that we can run the survey, is our experience that it takes 3 to 4 weeks when everything goes well. Meanwhile, we set up the survey technically, and what we find very important, and this gives also the very high response rates we have, is informing the employees not only via email, but I mean, it's so easy now because you can do it online, that you really make an online call and that you inform the employees about the survey and why you do it and why it is important. We have response rates between 18 and 19% of this. So I think, and this gives you also a good basis on which you can build when you have 80 to 19% that responded to your survey. Then we run the survey, and we have the experience that 10 to 12 days is a good time. So not only 1 week, because when somebody is away in 1 week, then there are still a few more days. To create the reports, it takes us 2 days, and then you as a consultant can plan, but we think with the material you get from us in really a few days, you are ready to present the results to the responsible management or to the project leaders. So all in all, within 5 to 6 weeks from the start until the presentation of the results. And so we think this is a good time so that you then can also adapt your change architecture, or you can plan your interventions. So, the last sentence from the Change I crew. And for the moment, thank you to you all. And yes, Bernd, we are happy to...
Big thank you, Marcella, and yeah, I see a lot of applause and very nice remarks in the chat. And interesting that your mission statement is quite similar, or it's no coincidence maybe that your mission statement is quite similar like the Change Pioneer mission statement. Let's open the floor for any questions or remarks, or maybe from your experience, what have you tried out so far in change analytics or change architecture? Marco is raising his hand.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I'm sorry I'm being late. So I've joined this call a little bit late, so I couldn't have like a sort of a school run, so I have to pick up my kid. But maybe you already answered these questions, and maybe the things been answered. But I just want to understand, obviously, this is a form. Is this a platform? We are talking about platform, or we are talking about just a survey? So that's the first question I want to know. So to me, it's really interesting to know how we can actually measure change, and in that sense, meaning how we can have set up a baseline values in the internal survey, and whether this is actually something that's going to be executed more in the future within the same team, because I would like to take the baseline of the change and then follow whether we've done anything in this process. So is there any? So that's the first one. So well, actually maybe that's the second one. So but then the other questions will be, is there any artificial intelligence on the back that actually follows how people go through the change and giving suggestions to the change architect on the back? So is there a platform that actually communicates with the change architect and then of course with people that are included in change? So that's probably the rest of it will follow, but these are the key questions I want to know.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much, Pablo. I try to get it right. And I would, when I hear you, I have the feeling that you formulate a lot of things that we want to achieve in the future, because we are just 1.5 to 2 years on the way with our Change I. We had around a dozen surveys until now, which makes us quite proud, but we also know that this is only the beginning. And so this is the answer to artificial intelligence. We hope that probably in 2 years' time, we will be able to start to work also with artificial intelligence, and also to add measures that can be taken when we see a certain picture of results. I'm not sure if I got your question right, if it is a platform. I think no, at the moment it's not a platform, it's really just this survey that we have on hand.
So what I'm asking about platform, just to make it clear. So, for example, you have a plenty of different types of initiatives and changes in the organization. So you define all of them, and then of course you start initial survey with people regarding those changes. So platform means that you have a platform where a change architect could have their own place and area to enter change, communicating with stakeholders, meaning what the change really, what the benefits are. And then, of course, once you have a platform, you're going to have at the end of the journey a dashboard, knowing, how the change is progressing throughout the different parts of the business. That makes sense.
Yes. Yeah, I understand, and that's a great thing. But at the moment, we are not there. Yes. So at the moment, it's really a single solution. Yes.
It's Andreas. I have another question. In the US, a company called ProSci, PROSCI, is also very active and has a similar survey. Are you familiar with that?
No, actually, no. That's very interesting.
Because they're also a research firm, and they have done a lot of research why change processes fail, and they published a report. So that's really, I just wanted to see if you're familiar with them. They are very strong here in the US, and maybe a little weaker or not as well known in Europe, but it's a very similar process.
Okay, thank you very much for this hint. And yes, I think we have to expand our team.
Just to clarify, I am a ProSci certified professional. And we have a plenty in our company. And I've seen, just to add to the comments, so your survey does remind me on the assessment survey from ProSci. Yeah. However, ProSci is following that, the 5 steps, which is the outcome methodology, and it's very similar. So, I'm glad, that you actually have something similar to ADCAR, because all the technical changes that the big companies like Microsoft are they're dealing with ADCAR. We all, as a partners, we deal with the same thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I think that's ProSci's model, the ADCAR model, huh? So.
Now I understand. Yes, of course. No, I know it. I didn't understand it right. But it's ProSci with the ADCAR model. Yes.
Yeah.
We have another question or raising hand by Silvia.
Yes, I would like to know whether these 30 questions that you are talking about, are they always the same for every change project? Can they really be the same, or do we also might need some adjustments here?
Yes, good question. They are always the same because we started our work with really going in all the literature that we could find about change, and we made various loops with OD specialists and customers to find out these 6, or to condense these 6 success factors. And the second work was, or the second step was then to develop the questions for each factor. So they are the same. I think what is valuable is really also the possibility to enter free text, because there you find out more from more people can go more in detail, or they can add something that they think is not covered by the questions.
And would be interesting to explore, maybe not in this call, but what could be other questions. But I think that's the difference here, right? That change really comes from the meta success factors, where you then frame good questions, and more than to use it maybe as a dialogue to find out with the team or the organization that is red or orange or whatever, maybe more in detail what is needed, and to have already this report and this dialogue maybe as an intervention itself, right?
Yes, that's true. Because I mean, the results often don't show where the root causes are of these results. For example, we had one interesting case where a small IT software company was sold to a bigger one, big international company. And in the beginning, the need for change was, people said, yes, it's a good thing because their software was end of life cycle, everything was fine. And then we run the second survey after, I think it was 6 months. And all of a sudden, the need for change was not anymore seen. So very amazing result. And then when we talked to the people, we found out that the company that took over the small company, they pushed much more than they had expected. So much more speed and much more change than expected. And that was the reason why people went back and said, was that really the right decision to do that? And the consequence for the management was really to go into dialogue with the employees and remind them of why this decision was taken. And I think this is the valuable thing with these results, when you take them and then you go into discussion. When we present it to the responsible management, there the interesting things happen, because management sees the results and starts talking about the causes that are underlying.
Great. And while we maybe wait for more questions or remarks, Marcella, do you have maybe one other interesting finding from one of the other customer projects, or anything that stood out or that was remarkable, where you maybe you told me you did with certain customers two of these surveys, but with others you did 3 even. So yeah, any more customer stories to share?
Yes, one of the first customer stories. This was within a university. It was a merger of 2 organizational units, a merger of equals, you could say, with a new management. And in the survey, we saw that one part, the one organizational unit was much more skeptical and critical than the other. And especially the change leadership was seen critical. Although there was for both units the same new management. And then we found out that the one unit had bad experiences in the past with former management, and that former management did not treat people fairly and did not inform in an open way. And yes, when we realized that, it was clear that the new management had to go in a much more intense dialogue with the one organizational unit. So that was also interesting. The 2 units, same management, and then the difference. Yes.
That's also possible,
so
right?
I have to together with all these stories. Yes.
Yeah. And that's also possible with the change. I don't know if you mentioned it, to have different organizational units compared with each other. So not only hierarchy level, but also different organizational units, right?
That's very important.
Yeah.
That's what you as a consultant have to really define at the beginning with your customer, which organizational units belong together and shall be seen in the report. And yeah, this gives really also the problem that you have often in change processes is that you try to treat everybody in the same way. And only when you see that some organizational units have more difficulties than the others, then you can really you can intervene much more targeted and also much resource that you don't need so much time and resources then.
Absolutely. So a little bit to make change interventions really customized to the individual, or at least to the certain department. That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, that's.
Any more questions from the audience or remarks or sharings? If not, as we said, we will distribute the recording and also the slides. So if you want to contact us, you find here the contact details, but also in the slides. And yeah, from my side, a big thank you to Marcella, big thank you to Tobias, and I hand back to Tobias.
Yeah, well, there's not a lot to say anymore. Thanks. It was really an impressive talk. It was a great framing from your side, Bernd, and I think we have a good insight with respect to what Change I is and what you can do with it. And I definitely see a wide field of application, since a lot of managers, especially with those soft topics at hand, like change or transformation, they kind of want to know what is coming out, if there's something coming out, if they do anything there. And for this, I think this is an ideal tool, starting at the beginning to see what is the zero line measurement, doing some change, and then check again, or even in intermediate steps to see, are we progressing, and where perhaps does it diverge in different organizational units or something like that. So I hope that we will have a fruitful cooperation there, and that we can well expand the field for Change I and data-driven change more and more with you, Marcella. Thank you very much, and I wish you a lovely evening and a lovely rest of the day for everybody who has been joining this. Bye-bye, and see you.
Thank you also from my
week.
side.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.